Hello everyone, welcome to another weekly Arty Mouse film. This week the tribe has decided that we're going to talk about proportion and how to use it. So this is how to measure things out in your drawing so that they're in the right place and that they're the right size. It's mostly associated with drawing the human form, so I'm going to talk about that because I know there's a lot of dressmakers watching who need some help with that. These methods I'm going to talk about can be associated with any subject. So you could draw a small still life using these methods. You could draw a great panoramic landscape with these methods as well. So it's going to help you with everything to do with proportion. But stay tuned because at the end I'm going to have 6 top tips on how to draw with proportion. They're easy for you to remember. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to join the email list, the link for that is below. It'll give you a free newsletter each week and some art tips every time, some stuff that you can download and it'll help you with your work. You can also send me stuff on Instagram at ArtyMouse76 if you want some individual help with a particular thing, then send me the work and we can have a chat about it, see if we can sort it out for you. You know, I'm starting to think I should put together a proper art course for everybody. Just like a website with lots of stuff on it for you to go to. Leave me a comment, see what you think, and I might do it.
Proportion refers to the dimensions of a composition and the relationships between height, width, and depth. How proportion is used affects the realism of a piece. It is the description of how one part of a drawing relates to the other parts or to the whole. It is particularly important in architectural studies and when drawing the human form. Throughout history, scholars have attempted to define what is considered a proportional canon, which they have hoped will in turn define beauty. The idea of capturing a definition of beauty has changed dramatically over the centuries. The Greeks and Romans in particular chased this ideal. The Roman architect Vitruvius gave us his 6 principles of design, and later the polymath Leonardo da Vinci gave us the Vitruvian Man, attempting to accurately visualize those principles. This, of course, is different from hierarchical proportion, wherein the status of a subject is directly related to its size. This was prominent, of course, in Egyptian art. Proportional studies are an attempt to find perfection despite the subjectivity of such a definition. Thanks, Joyce. It's all lies though, of course. But don't tell her I said that. She gets quite stroppy when people disagree with her. She starts gesticulating and muttering incomprehensibly. The truth is, it's all very well having a definition of beauty with rules and principles, but it doesn't translate into the real world. You may have been told that the adult human form is 8 heads high, and when you look at Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, that is technically correct. But when did you last draw a human being standing like that? Back straight, arms at their side, weight equally distributed on each foot. Nobody stands like that naturally, not even the Queen. In fact, I think her Madge might be shrinking. Anyway, we all stick out one hip, fold our arms, lean on things, and fold our legs up in any number of ways when we sit down. So the question I'm here to answer for you today is how to cope with that. How to look at any figure in any position and be able to translate that to your page. Once you get the hang of these principles, you can apply it to anything you care to draw. The key to all of this is measurement. Unfortunately, there's maths behind all of this. It's the foundation of everything in the universe, after all. But forget the numbers, don't be scared. If you're one of the many "I just don't get maths" people, please don't panic. It's about balance and layout and use of space, and lines of reference finding each other and joining up until you have your drawing. Every line you draw has a relationship with another line somewhere in your drawing, so think of it as puzzle pieces that you need to construct one line at a time. Have you ever seen a film where someone is taking the mickey out of artists? You know the kind I mean, beret, easel, paint everywhere and a dramatic attitude. Of course you do. One of those dramatic gestures is usually holding up a pencil towards something off in the distance, closing an eye, sticking out their tongue and then starting to paint. If you want to get proportions correct, then this trick with the pencil is exactly what you should be doing. The dramatic attitude is optional, of course, but I recommend that too. Makes the world a lot more fun. When you're drawing from a photograph, You can map things out with a grid or use a ruler to check what you're doing. But what happens when you're drawing from life, looking at something in front of you? Pick something in your composition that isn't going to change, the height of a chair, the width of a head, something solid. Hold your pencil and measure that length. Make sure you lock your elbow when you do this. It's very, very important, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But when you've taken that first measurement, transfer the information about the length onto the page and keep doing this to build up your image. If you want to scale up from the information you're getting, you can. Simply double up the lengths every time you transfer your measurements. But remember to be consistent and do this every time, or you'll get into a heap of trouble. So, to go back to that locked elbow, look at something in the room where you currently are. Hold out your arm to measure it between a thumb and finger, locking your arm. Then slowly bend your arm. Can you see that the measurement changes and becomes incorrect? This is what I mean about being consistent. If you always lock your elbow, your measurement will always be correct in terms of how it relates to all your other measurements. So no spaghetti arms, please. Now you can use this measuring method on anything in front of you to calculate length, width and depth, and then transfer that information to the page. But that isn't the end of the story. You can also use this method to calculate the angle of, say, an arm flung out away from the body. Hold up your pencil at arm's length again, at the desired angle. Go back to your page and add a gentle line that follows your pencil's position, and then go back to measure the length of the item you're drawing. It's important to think about composition and make sure you can fit everything you want to draw on your page. Use your measurements to figure out your scale, measuring the height and width of the whole person, for example, before you start. You can also use negative space to measure size and angles. Find shapes within the spaces between things in order to get lengths and angles correct. For example, in this picture, you could start building it up using triangles and negative space. The last thing I want to talk about is something called foreshortening, and figuring this out will help you draw people sitting down. I've had a couple of requests to help people with this, so here we go. This picture is a really good example of foreshortening. This is when the classical proportion rules go out the window. 8 heads to a body? Not this time, my friend. Go ahead and measure the length of the left leg from foot to knee, and then move that measurement to a vertical measurement from the top of the head, and you'll see that the top half of the body will fit into that same space. Foreshortening happens when we look at things from unusual angles. I've said it over and over, I know, but draw what you see, not what you think you see. Don't worry about the part of your brain that tells you that heads are bigger than feet if the picture you're looking at tells you different. Trust your measurements above all else when mapping something out. This is a picture of Leonard Cohen that I once drew for a client. Notice how large his right hand is because it's coming towards the viewer. His knees are as big as his head, but it looks correct because of foreshortening. Here are my 6 top tips for getting your proportions correct. Number 1. Straighten that arm. Always lock your elbow so that all your measurements are consistent. 2. Always draw at an angle. Get a drawing board and angle your paper towards you rather than drawing flat on the table. When you draw flat, you're creating a distortion between the top and bottom of your drawing automatically. You're working with an optical illusion before you even start, and it'll throw you off balance, trust me. Try drawing at an angle and you'll see how much easier it is to get things correct. 3. Air drawing. Have you ever had to erase things and afterwards you can see an indent you've made on the paper that's never going to go away? If you draw your lines a few times in the air but just above the paper, then draw lines really lightly on the page when you're mapping out, you will eliminate this indentation problem. 4. Keep checking. Always go back and check on your measurements to make sure. Do you remember the woodshop teacher at school saying, measure twice, cut once? Drawing is the same. Check measurements and you prevent mistakes and frustration later on. 5. Speed drawing. Go back to my film on speed drawing. Again, the link is below. It'll help you with layout and quick information gathering, which will help you map out a composition quickly. 6. Keep it simple. Find basic shapes and the correct lines and angles and then build it up. I always remember a life drawing teacher I had that would yell things like, "This is a 20-minute sketch. If I see you drawing any necklaces and watches, I am throwing you out." In other words, don't get bogged down with small details when you don't need them yet. If all this seems a little daunting, please don't be intimidated. There are a lot of drawing techniques that become second nature with practice. It's like driving a car. Your first thought when you get behind the wheel is, good God, you mean I've got to control thousands of pounds worth of machinery with all these strange buttons whilst simultaneously attempting to concentrate on the road and keep other road users safe? Come on! But then after you pass your test, you aren't even thinking about the controls at all because you're so used to working them. Go with your instincts and have a little faith in yourself. You have your own style, and my tips aren't rules. Measuring with scientific accuracy might be your thing. Working with geometric shapes might be your thing. Gestural flowing marks might be where you feel most comfortable. Remember, I'm not here to tell you how to draw. I'm here to show you how I worked it out to suit me, and hope that it helps you get to the point where you're happy to show someone else what you've done and say, I did this and I'm really proud of it. I want you to be able to lose your sense of time when you draw because you get pulled into the fun of it. Finding the headspace to sit down and create something for yourself is never a waste of time. And finally, as always, subscribe below if you like what you hear. Leave me a comment and tell me what it is about proportion that you struggle with, and I'll help you out. Send me things on Instagram at ArtyMouse76, and don't forget to add yourself to the community's ever-growing email list to get free weekly art tips and entrance to the odd competition. See you soon.